Welcome to the And She Looked Up Creative Hour podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Hartfield, and I'm an artist and an entrepreneur. And yes, those two things can go together. This podcast is for the artists, the creatives, and the makers who want to find a way to make a living doing what they love. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 24 of the And She Looked Up Creative Hour podcast. I'm your host, Melissa, and I am here today with my fabulous August co-host, Heather Travis. Hello, Heather.
Hi.
And this is actually Heather's last episode today. This is episode number 4 for the month of August. So
this has been so much fun.
Oh, I've had such a good time. It's been great. But we're going to wrap up today by talking about something that Heather and I both have a lot of experience with, and that is pitching. We have both pitched frequently, and we have both been in situations where we get pitched frequently. So I think it's safe to say we know the ins and outs of a good pitch at this point.
Oh, God, yeah. Yes, oh, yes. Yes.
Now, you might be thinking that you don't have a reason to pitch within your business, but I am going to say that if you're not pitching, you are probably leaving some opportunities on the table. Pitching doesn't have to revolve around soliciting work. It can also be something that you do when you want to pitch a collaborative idea with another creative or maker. It could be something that you're doing when you want to, if you're a writer, you might want to be pitching magazines or publications. You might want to pitch yourself to a news entity to get yourself a little bit of press, maybe for an upcoming market that you're doing or an upcoming gallery exhibition, or you've just written a book and you need people to buy it. There's so many different reasons that you might find yourself in a situation where pitching is a good idea. And so today we're going to talk about some of the ins and outs of what makes a good pitch, some of the things you want to avoid when you're pitching. And hopefully when you're done, you will feel much more confident, because I think pitching is something that a lot of people view as a bit of a mystery. They're not really sure how to do it and who to talk to and what to say. So we're going to go through all of that today. And I think, Heather, what do you think is the essence of making a good pitch? What do you think it's all about at the heart of it?
At the heart of it, and it's going to be a word that anybody who's been joining Melissa and I for the past 3 episodes will have heard before, but it's about relationships and also research. A pitch, and I'll say this to really kick things off, a pitch is absolutely not the first contact you have with somebody. If you have never said hello to a brand, if you have never collaborated with somebody before, the first introduction to you and to what that partnership and collaboration or the business relationship should be, your pitch is not an introduction. Your pitch is a pitch. An introduction happens before the pitch.
Ding, 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 ding. Can I just say, yes?
Yeah. And so that starts a really good pitch and I pitch all the time. I get pitched at all the time, and I fail. I deliver great pitches and they don't stick sometimes, but that's not because I didn't have a good idea or it wasn't there's so many different reasons why the pitch didn't stick, but the pitch is never the first step. It's always part of the relationship. And I think that's what a successful pitch is one that really shows that you are in a partnership with whomever it is that you're pitching, and that you've done the research to understand the value that you can add to that partnership.
I could not agree more. It's funny, when I was thinking about this morning before we started recording, the first word that came into my head was relationships. And I was thinking to myself, wow, basically since I've started podcasting, so with you this month and with Lisa in the previous 20 episodes, it's funny how I have realized that really the underlying theme of almost every single episode we have done is relationships.
Yeah.
So if you take one thing away from this episode and
Yes.
any of the previous episodes, it really is, do not underestimate the value of creating relationships, both with your peers and colleagues and with your community of fans, purchasers, clients, people who read your content, people who buy your stuff. Like, those
Yes.
relationships are so critically important.
And I remember, I mean, it applies in this situation, which is it's not what you know, it's who you know,
It
right?
is. It is.
And so, and I would extend that on it's who you know and what you know about them. And that the only
Yes.
way you can know things about a person, a business, the budgets, what they're looking to achieve, what their issues are, what problems can you solve for them through whatever it is that you're pitching. You have to have a relationship, and I'm thinking of something like a Dragon's Den, right, where they're walking in. That really is a cold pitch,
Hmm.
but those people, they're walking in there having done huge amounts of research on all of the dragons that they're presenting to. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? What tickles them? What words do we use? That, even though it's, quote, a cold pitch, there's still research done so that you can speak better to the person who you're targeting, right? And those cold pitches, those are so rare, in my opinion, right? Those are
Yes.
so, so rare. That's such a rarity, walking into a room and being like, hi, I got this great idea and you can give me $1 million.
Yes.
That's, I've
I
never done
know.
that.
Actually, the idea of doing Dragon's Den terrifies me. If you're listening in the US, Dragon's Den is the Canadian equivalent of Shark's Tank. So,
Yes.
and actually, I think some of the dragons have been on Shark Tank as
Yes, they're
well.
dragons
So,
and sharks.
yes. So, but yeah, that is, it's quite funny because anybody who shows up on those shows and hasn't done their research on the dragons gets an earful.
Exactly. And as they should, because part of a pitch is really thinking through. It's not me, and we've talked about this, and even in terms of negotiation, it's
Yeah.
not me, I. It's, here's what, first off, we can do together, and here's how I can help you. Here's how we can drive towards this result, and together.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do. It's nothing to do with you. In fact, the pitch should have nothing to do with you. The pitch should have everything to do with how you can help that partner. What solutions are you providing?
Yes. One of the things I think to keep in mind, that's important to keep in mind, is if you are pitching somebody who is not well known, because that particular person might not be well known, but let's say you're pitching a publication that's well known, you're pitching a brand that's well known. In those instances, those people get pitched every day.
Yep.
Like, they see so many pitches, and it could take over their lives going through pitches, quite frankly, some of them. And
Yeah.
so if your pitch doesn't immediately grab their interest in a way that makes them think this person's going to do something for me, you're really going to struggle to get seen. If you are making, I'm not being very, very eloquent about this, but if you are pitching something and there's anything about your pitch that makes them have to do work,
Yes.
they're not going to be thrilled. And by work, I don't mean doing their job. I mean saying, like, I get these kind of pitches all the time. I'd really love to work with you or collaborate with you guys. What kind of things could I write about for you? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
you know what? Now I have to sit there and I have to brainstorm topic ideas. I don't have time to do that. If you want to write for me, you
Yes.
brainstorm the topic ideas based on the research you've done about our publication and put forward a list to me. Like, when I see somebody who's come to me with a list of ideas, it's like, oh, good. I don't have to think about this. Like, all I have to do is go through the list and be like, that's good, that's no good, maybe. And it's so much easier because
Yes.
brainstorming is a lot of work.
And that's exactly it. And you're showing the value that you can offer.
Yes.
And through to your example, if all of the ideas that you've given are no good, it shows that you actually don't understand my publication.
Yes.
You don't understand who I am. Whereas if I'm reading this and going, wow, you really get my audience. You really get that. Even if the topics necessarily are ones that I'm like, no, we've got this on our agenda already. it doesn't matter. It shows that you've put huge amounts of time and energy into understanding who it is that you're trying to pitch, right? I mean, gosh, not to bring spouses or partners into this, but there's a pitch and negotiation that happens in, like I'm going to pitch that we go here for vacation, right? Let's pitch here, which in this case, it's let's go to the living room for vacation right now. But, you have to understand what triggers that person. Like, I know you want this out of the vacation. So here's what we're putting on the table. And that, just like negotiation, you need to do a lot of research. And in fact, I'd say, if you have a relationship with somebody, your pitch actually shouldn't be in an email until you've picked up the phone and actually had the conversation. Unless you know through that relationship concretely that they would prefer to hear from you in email. But I would love it that you're actually picking up the phone or sending a text message and saying, hey, do you have time for coffee? I have an amazing idea I'd like to talk to you about.
Oh, see, I'm the opposite. I want an email first.
You want an email?
I want an email first. And if it's a good idea and if I'm curious about it, then I want to talk to you.
Then you want to talk.
Yeah. Yep. So I think you made a good point there, is finding out.
Yes.
Like feeling the person out and figuring out, because we're not all the same. That's something, you can't put everyone into a box, but you're very open about the fact that you love to have those conversations on the phone. And so it's not hard to learn that about you, right?
No, exactly. And that's exactly it. Like it takes 5 seconds, and any email that you'd send me, I'd be like, let's get on a call.
Yes. So we're not saying just pick up the phone and call Heather, but like she said, send her an email and say, hey, I'd love to talk to you. I have a really great idea. How about this time? And again, right in there, propose a time where you are free, multiple times where you're free. So she doesn't have to, so you don't have to do this back and forth. Like, well, what about Tuesday? No, I'm busy Tuesday. Well, what about Thursday? Well, like make it easier. Give her some time slots to choose from, and say in your email, if none of these time slots work for you, let me know when is a good time. Like, just do everything you can to make it easier for that person to want to talk to you.
That's exactly it, and it shows, again, willingness to collaborate and be an active partner in success, right? And if it's all about me, well, I want to talk at 10 a.m. Monday. Well, I don't. Then you're right. That relationship is not off to a good start. And that clearly shows a lack of understanding and unwillingness to collaborate and meet me, somewhere in the middle to even have this discussion. So I think that, relationships, relationships. And it's all about knowing your audience, right? Like, just like in negotiation, it's knowing your audience. And so Melissa wants the email first. I want the phone call, or the quick email that says I want to talk to you, or the text message that says I want to talk to you, or the Instagram message that says I want to talk to you. And that is a lovely way. But if I don't have time, then I'll respond and say, it's a super busy week. Would you mind sending me the idea in email? But give that person the opportunity so that you're not just dumping a 50-point PowerPoint presentation in their email and expecting a response in 24 hours.
And also just think about the relationship you have with that person. Now, if it was somebody like Heather who wanted to pitch me, I know Heather really well, and I know the kinds of things she's going to bring me because we've worked together many times over the years. So if Heather sent me an email and said, I have a great idea, do you want to talk tomorrow? I'd be like, yeah, because I've worked with Heather enough to know that she's not going to waste my time in a phone call. She knows me. She knows the work I do. She's going to come to me with an idea that is going to be interesting, to say the very least. It might not be a good fit right this moment, but it will be interesting. So I'm more than happy to listen. So think about the relationship you have with that person. If it is a fairly new relationship and you're feeling it out, then send the email. Ask if they would prefer to talk. That's an easy way you can do it in the first email, is say, I have an idea I'd like to pitch you. Would you prefer to talk on the phone, or would you like me to send you an email outlining it? And that gives the person the opportunity to say, let's just talk on the phone. That would be great. Or
totally. And you touched on something that I think is a nice segue, frankly, in terms of pitching, is that because of our experience together, because of our relationship, you have an understanding of the value that I offer, right?
Yes.
And that understanding comes from that long-standing working relationship, but also over time, me or as it like any person who's in a relationship, business relationship, I've expressed that value. Here's what I have done for you. Yay. And that is in terms of a pitch, that's something you need to get really, really good at communicating is the value that you are able to offer this partnership. And so again, it's not about me, my numbers, but it's around a number, it's understanding out of my 1,000 Instagram followers, 500 of them are totally within your primary audience brand that I'm looking at, or within the readership. They fall into that readership of your magazine or whatever it is. You are saying that the value that I have, here's how it translates to your brand. And you need to be able to clearly express that because every brand, you have an intrinsic value, whatever it is that you are as an artist, a blogger, an influencer, PR person, writer, journalist, whatever you are, you have value, but that value is different for every person who you're in a relationship with. They need something out of that relationship that's different. So you expressing that value is not a uniform, it's not a cookie cutter. And that's why I think, funny enough, I had done an article on the Food Bloggers of Canada website a few years ago around ditching the rate card. And part of that ditching the rate card is that every opportunity and every relationship and every negotiation and every pitch is a new opportunity to express that value and determine a rate based on that expression of value and the relationship that you've built with that person.
Yes. 100% agree with you on that. Another thing I just want to mention is Heather was using the word brand there a lot. And I don't want you to think of a brand as just doing corporate client work, like working with anyone you pitch for whatever reason is a brand. If you pitch, let's say you pitch Chatelaine magazine, that's a brand. Okay, you are pitching an editor, but you are also pitching a brand. Chatelaine has a very specific audience that they're talking to. If you are pitching another artist to work with you, let's say you're pitching me as Fine Lime Designs, which is my illustration business, that's still a brand. Like you're pitching me as the creator behind the brand, but hopefully you know the kind of illustration work I do. And if you came to me with like a great idea to collaborate on like a wildlife illustration project or something, that doesn't really fit with my brand. So when we say the word brand, I want you to think of brand in like a really big general sense as opposed to just like doing sponsor content or something like that.
Yeah, because even like I think of every different gallery, for instance, that I've applied to have my artwork in, while they're all galleries, each one of them is a very unique brand in that some galleries only focus on local artists. Some galleries only focus on people who work in particular, a particular medium. Other galleries focus on a particular style. And so that brand, even though they're a gallery, right? A gallery here, gallery there, the brand and how they present that brand out into the world is unique. And so me going in there, I have to say, here's how my brand can fit with your brand. And how they can work together, collaborate, elevate each other. Here's the value that I can offer. And yes, and even independent retailers, small businesses, those are all individual brands. And we've even started seeing now influencers, like one person with an Instagram account is a brand. That's a personal brand. Yes. So when you're hearing the word brand, think of it interchangeably with business, think of it interchangeably with person. Really, it could be either or all three.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think of Target. So Target does these amazing collaborations, and they used to do them with some very big fashion designers and home decor designers, but they have started working with influencers who are big in those spaces now and doing collaborations. Some of them are artists, some of them are lifestyle bloggers, some of them are DIY bloggers, but they've created these collaborations together that are bringing those two brands together because they're a good fit. You know, Target has that really young, fresh, fashion-forward kind of brand, and they team up with artists who are very similar to that to create these collaborations. So both of those two entities are brands, and they're coming together to create something really awesome.
Yes, exactly. And I think too, like pitches can be something that are really, really big. So you're pitching like pitching because you have a great relationship with Target and you're
Yeah.
pitching to be, the dishware designer for a new, Heather Travis dishware at Target. Oh my God, I'm putting that out into the universe right now. How cool would that be? Um, and then, so, there's that, but you could also be pitching, and I do it. Funny enough, that's what I spent a portion of last week was pitching an existing client who I have a long-standing relationship with, pitching them on a small program that's teeny tiny budget with a super small timeline, and then I have to turn around this week and on behalf of the client pitch to the influencers that we want to work with. And so the pitch that I gave to the client is very different than the pitch that I'm going to turn around and give to the influencers, but it's for the same program. So again, it's around expressing the value to each of them very clearly and how this collaboration would benefit the parties. But pitching can be something really, really small. It can be a really small program. It can be pitching to get an Instagram story mentioned on their Instagram, right? Like it could be just one little thing. And I think a lot of people with a pitch get a little wound up and they're like, I need to ask for all these things. No, it's the start of a relationship, right? You need to go on a first date and buy each other coffee.
Yes.
And then the next time, it's coffee and a muffin. And the time after that, maybe it's lunch. And then the time after that, it's dinner. And you're moving the relationship forward. You're spending more and more time together. Your brands are getting a deeper understanding of how you can add value to each other, right? It doesn't need to be the Target dishware collection right out of the gate. And because a lot of people are like, oh my God, I need to pitch and it needs to be this like big thing. But actually it could just be like the smallest of things. Like you need to start the relationship somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. If you were on a first date and that person asked you to marry them, you'd be a little weirded out, right? I mean,
Exactly.
in most cases, you'd be a little weirded out. Maybe that person is your soulmate and but in let's say 99% of cases, you'd be like, whoa, slow down. We just met for coffee.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly it. And it's funny, I've had it happen very, very rarely. And again, with me, just because I love the in-person contact, but it's been meeting somebody at an event and it's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So we don't know each other. We don't have a formal relationship, but you know so-and-so and I know so-and-so and I've heard so-and-so talk of you, right? Like, so you kind of know each other. And 2 glasses of wine sitting next to each other at a dinner table. And the next thing you know, you're like, this is going to work. I'm going to send you an email on Monday. We are going to totally collaborate on this. This is the greatest idea ever. And it's almost like the Will You Marry Me brand partnership, but it's such a spark and it's such a random occurrence. And there's still, and this is the thing that I'll caveat this with, is even though you walk away and you're like, yes, sold, I've got the Target dishware collection, there still has to be huge amounts of follow-up. It's not sold, right? And so there still has to be the negotiation process. You still have to clearly express your value so that that person can go back to their bosses or themselves and just say, it wasn't the wine talking. This was actually a really great idea, right? And so
yeah, in that case, it's kind of like buying a house. You go to the open house, you fall in love with this house, this is the right house. And that's when the work starts, right?
Exactly.
You got to put your offer in, you have all the subjects that you have to go through. There's a building inspection. There's a ton of stuff that has to happen before you actually get the keys to the house.
That's exactly it. And that's why we've said it a bazillion times, but that's why it's relationship, because then a pitch, and this is where, it's great to have a solid idea that you're like, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to move on to this, and this is how we're going to measure it, and this is how we're going to track it. And I'm going to put a little bit asterisk beside measurement and tracking, because I think that's a really important thing for us to discuss about pitching. But also, you need to be kind of malleable in your pitch, because it still needs to be flexible. You still need somebody to say, oh my God, I love that idea, but the timing is off for our brand. Could we do something like that 4 months later? Oh, yes, I love that idea. Let's see how that would play out. You can't just say, no, that wasn't my idea, right? You can't be the kid in the yard who only wants to play tag and refuses to play other games, right? And so if you've invited people outside to play with you and they say, yes, I want to play, and they don't quite want to play the same game that you want to play, you haven't lost. It's just the opportunity to figure out what the new rules of the game are. And like, maybe you'll like the new game better, right?
You never know. So we've kind of niched down and said like that the keys to pitching well are relationships and research. So let's dive into both of those a little bit more, and let's start with relationships. Let's say that you've come up with this great idea. You know who would be great to pitch it to, but you have no connections with this brand in any way. What are some good ways that you can start to build a relationship?
So first off, what you need to do, and this is such an easy one, and I'm always so amazed when people are like, no, I don't even follow them on Instagram.
Oh
and
my
I'm
goodness,
like,
yes.
dude, that's the first step. Like, it's such a facepalm moment. But honestly, this is like, put on your stalker hat and you just give her. Like, follow that brand on every single platform possible, including LinkedIn. I
Yeah.
also want you to start engaging. So follow their stories, commenting on things, really get your name in there so that when, again, this is the start of that relationship. So if you do send a DM, say a couple, months into following them and actively doing research, what are they interested in? Is this does my idea float with what they're putting out into the world? This is when you're going to send them a note and say, hi, I love your brand and I would love to connect with somebody, asking for the right contact information. When they say a DM from you, it's not the first time they've ever seen your name in the DMs. You want your name to be in there a little bit more prominently before you start asking for things. And on that note of asking for people's contact information, it's amazing what you can find on the internet. And this is in terms of that research. Like, you need to research to form these relationships. And LinkedIn is such a valuable tool. And you can look at, for instance, press releases that companies have sent out to see who's at the bottom of that press release. Is there a contact there that you should be reaching out to? Go to that PR agency's website. Do they have contact information there? What information is available on the LinkedIn? Whose job title is associated with brand partnerships, for instance, or sponsorship or marketing and PR? And look that up. Start connecting with these people on LinkedIn. Make an introduction. That's what the platform is there to do. And so those relationships need to start somewhere. And I would also turn to and this is a little bit tricky, but I would also turn to close blogger relationships or any relationships that you might have within that industry. So maybe a friend has worked with that person. Maybe they're willing to share contact information. But I would be very, so again, back to that relationship. If Melissa came to me looking for contact information for somebody she knows I'm in contact with, but she doesn't know, I will happily provide that contact information and offer the connection. I will send an email to
Yeah.
that person and say, I'm introducing you by way of this email to my friend Melissa. I think you guys would be great. Here you go, love, Heather. If I don't know you very well and you're coming to me asking for contact information, I'm probably not going to give it to you because that actually could ruin my relationship
Yes.
with that person,
Yeah.
right? So you need to be very cautious around who you're making these asks of, even though it's, quote, only an email address. That could be the beginning of the end of my relationship with that person. So you need to be cautious around asking for that. But there's so much available online, like so much available online for the relationship stage of things, that you can just Google. Google is your best
Yeah.
friend.
There you mentioned LinkedIn. LinkedIn is such an underused resource in the creative community. I strongly suggest that even if
Mm-hmm.
you don't necessarily want to have a profile on there, you should create one anyway because it gives you access to so much information.
Yeah.
Like you said, you can follow company profiles, you can connect with people who work for those companies, and don't just think of it as like big companies. You can find gallery owners on there, you can
Yep.
find the people who run craft markets.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is on LinkedIn, and you can connect with those people. Like, that's what the platform is about connecting professionally with those people.
Yes.
So that's really important to maybe we should do a LinkedIn episode one day down the road, but
oh my gosh, yes, I love LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's really important to remember, is that when you are updating your LinkedIn profile, like it's not about what you did this weekend or stuff like that. It is about what you're doing within your professional career. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, even simple things like going to a company's website, quite often they will have a section on their site where all their press releases are hosted. Yep. And in those press releases, you can often see a press release where they announce their agency of record. So that tells you probably, because if you're looking at large companies, a lot of them won't deal directly with you. You'll go through their agency, whether that's their PR agency, their marketing agency. They may have multiple agencies that they work with. So that's something to consider as well. Yeah, so that's a start. And I think also asking for introductions is really powerful. Yes. Even more so than asking for contact information, I think. So one of the things that I have had to do throughout my career is we host large-scale events with Food Bloggers of Canada, and I was involved with the planning of large-scale events in my corporate job as well. And one of the things that I've been tasked with over the past 7 or 8 years is putting together the speaker lineups for these events.
and what speaker lineups you guys have pulled together. Whoa.
Yes, and that has been a really good lesson for me in learning, because in many instances I did have to cold pitch because these people didn't know who, I'm pitching leaders in their field, and many of them have no idea who I am, but they're very open to speaking at events and hosting workshops and doing conferences. That for many of them, that is as part of how they earn their incomes. So I'm cold pitching, but I'm pitching somebody who is open to what I'm pitching.
Yes.
In that sense. But many of the people that I have been able to bring in to those events, I have been able to do that because I've known somebody who knows them, or I know somebody who knows somebody who knows them. And I have gone to those people. I have good, solid relationships with them. They know that if they come to me, I will help them. And if I go to them, they will help me. And having somebody make that introduction on your behalf really opens the door for you, especially if it's somebody that, if Heather came to me and said, Melissa, I have got this person who would be a perfect fit for your next seminar. Like, I really think you should talk to them. I'd be, I know Heather well, I trust her. And absolutely, I would talk to that person. Whereas if that person had pitched me or had simply asked Heather for my contact information and then pitched me, I probably would have been like, I don't know you. I need some time to warm up here. But Heather's done the warming up for them.
Yes. And I'll say, funny enough, if I'm willing to give up the contact information, it's because I want to do an introduction. So, so in my experience, I would say the only way I'm giving up contact information is because I am making the introduction.
Yes. I'm very protective with other people's email addresses. It's like a phone number to me. I never give out an email address without asking the person who that email belongs to first. Like,
correct.
That's just common courtesy.
Yes, I agree. And sometimes the introduction is very flowy and like, what do you want to talk to this person about? I'm going to like pre-pitch on your behalf, right? And then other times it's just a quick, I'm introducing you and now I've passed the hot potato over to you for the full pitch, right? But I would also look to, and this is, I guess, even part of that pitch process is the relationship that you have. If you're using a connection, use that connection, right? So Melissa has a great idea. She needs to get through me. I'm the gatekeeper to this next person. Don't just ask me for the contact information. Use me. How can I help you pitch to take it to the next step so that when I'm making this introduction, right, how can I give you a leg up?
Yeah.
Is there something that I can say, right? Like, can I say, oh my gosh, I've known Melissa for this long and here, like, I can give background information. I can pitch Melissa.
She can make me sound awesome.
Exactly. Like, I can pitch you so that when you go to pitch, right, you're not pitching you, you're pitching the idea.
Yes.
And
because the person is already receptive to you at
That's
that point.
exactly
Yeah.
it. And they're receptive to you because one, the connection has been made through relationship building, but
Hmm.
also two, because you've collaborated with somebody else on that pitch, right? And I think that, like, if 10 people tell you Melissa's awesome, I don't need the 11th person to tell me. But if nobody's told me, right, then might need Melissa to tell me that herself. And so if you can get other people to tell the person that you want to talk to that you're awesome, and I would say, influencers, here's a great tip is you want to work with a brand, use your army of followers to help you get that. There's an nicely, right? You want to be nice about it, but get them to share projects that you've done and tag the brand, in projects that you've worked with, a paint company, and you're buying the paint yourself. Get them to share it and say, I love this project this person did with this, so that they start seeing that lots of people
Yes, that's a really good
love,
idea.
right? Like, you can use the collaboration doesn't need to just be offline, and it doesn't need to be for the end goal. It could be the end goal of getting the pitch, right? Like, there's so many ways you can partner with purpose with so many different people to achieve your goals.
Yeah, and that's part of the relationship building thing too. This is a mistake I see so many people make, is that, let's say a brand approaches you and they ask you for something that's not really your thing, or the compensation's not right, or whatever, it's just not a good fit,
Mm-hmm.
and you slam the door shut, or you respond in a rather flippant or short manner, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't work for free, or
Yep.
whatever. And you know, I'm not saying you should go out and work for free. I'm saying there are times where it may be appropriate to go out and
Yes.
work for free. But, if you need to make money, you need to make money. And you are running a business, so you
Mm-hmm.
do need to charge. But you have to kind of remember that it's not just this moment. What
Exactly.
you are saying no to is potentially all the future moments. And not just the future moments where that brand comes to you. I'm talking about the future moments where you have to go to that brand. And wouldn't it be so much easier to go to that brand or that person who represents that brand and ask for something if you've already done them a favor? When
Yes.
you've got a favor in your back pocket, and you can
Yes.
go and say, do you remember how, we worked on that little Instagram project a few months ago? I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And now I've got something that I think would be really great fit for you. So
Yes.
you can pitch it, and you've already done something with them. You might not have got paid as much as you wanted to, or it might have
Totally.
been too small for you to really pay attention to.
Yes.
Um,
You need
yeah,
to do one for the studio before you can make your indie film.
yeah,
Isn't that what they always say, right? Like,
yes,
so, and funny enough, that even that response could be, thanks for sending this to me. This doesn't quite work with, my time, my budget, etc. But I
yes.
know a few people who I think would be perfect for this, who I know love your product or brand or
I used to
whatever.
do this all the time as a web designer. If my docket was full and I didn't have room for any new clients, and somebody would come to me and say, I need this, whatever, and
Yep.
I'd be full, and I would always have two or three people in my back pocket that I could recommend. And I
Yep.
had like a reciprocal arrangement with those two or three people. Like, we all kind of recommended each other, because
Yes.
first of all, you have to trust that person's work, right? Like, don't
Yep.
recommend somebody, never recommend somebody who does questionable work. That's
No
going to hurt
kidding.
you in the long run. But these were all people that I was very confident in their ability to do the work, that I knew had a similar style to me and would probably be a good fit for somebody who was interested in me. And I would just say, why don't you try these three people? I know that so and so has availability right now. And just the act of helping that client, I'm
Yes.
saying no to the client, but I'm giving them options to
Exactly.
make their life easier. So we come back to this whole thing of making people's lives easier. And that sticks in a person's head.
Absolutely. And it's funny, when you were talking, I was sort of envisioning like getting the email and being like, no, that's not the budget. It's like walking into a restaurant and having them say, okay, well, our specials tonight, we have a fish. I effing hate fish. I'm out of here. Sorry, what now? Like, you just can't, we just sat down, right? Like, let's go through the menu. Maybe you want the pizza, and maybe you're going to say, hold the mushrooms. And I'm going to say, no problem. Right?
That's
like,
a very good analogy. I really like that. I'm going to use that in the future.
You can't, like, it just, that to me, that's such an immediate, like, whoa, wow, like, hello, I thought we were just having a conversation here. Yeah, you can't have such an immediate reaction. You need to be able, and exactly to where you concluded that, which is, you're still moving the needle forward. You're still helping in that client relationship. And instead of saying, yeah, I went to Melissa and she said no, I went to Melissa and she was a great help. Right? Yes. And that great help could be, I hired her, she solved our problem, or she was a great help, comma, she directed us over to this person who helped solve our problem.
Yeah, exactly. You can do the same thing if the budget's not a good fit for you,
Totally.
but you know somebody else who works with smaller budgets, and just say, I'm afraid this isn't the right fit for our budget, like what we need to get out of a project or whatever. But try this person. I know she works with smaller budgets and she does really great work, and she might be a really good fit for you.
Absolutely.
There's so many ways, and don't worry about giving work to other people. There is more than enough work. I don't care what industry, well, maybe some industries there's not, but in the creative space, and I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're a jewelry maker, a writer, there is space for all of us. So get over this whole idea that somebody who's charging less than you is destroying the industry, or somebody who's charging more than you is being ridiculous, or if you give somebody else work, everybody's going to flock to them instead of coming to you. It doesn't work that way.
It absolutely doesn't. And just think of like wine brands. Like, nobody ever says, oh, no.
I only drink this wine brand.
we don't need another cheap wine brand. No, we don't need another expensive wine brand. Yeah, we do. People keep bringing in wine brands all day, every day, because people choose different things and they make choices. And it's not up to us to determine, right, what people want or need. That's for us to only determine for ourselves. And the world is a really small place, and connections, and you never know who you're talking to. And it's always better to be helpful and help direct people. Even if the answer's no, you're still helping.
Yeah.
And that, like that, I will come back to you again and give you another opportunity to work together, versus the person who just said no, right? Like, you tell me you don't like the fish and you leave my restaurant. Fine. The next time you come, I'm just going to tell you we don't have the fish that you want here. Goodbye. Like, you've just made it very obvious, right?
All we have is fish. Go away.
All we have is fish. Goodbye. Yeah.
Yes. So I think there's so many different ways that you can just start those relationships. Social media has made forming relationships much easier than it used to be. So, just take advantage of all these little places where you can actively engage. I think that's really important. It's one thing to kind of just follow somebody or spot them on social media or see them at the grocery store or whatever. But if you don't say hi to that person at the grocery store, they're just going to think you're kind of snobby. Like,
exactly.
Oh, there's that person who I know, but they never say hello. That's kind of what social media is like.
And make it more than emojis. Like, don't just put some hearts below all their grid photos.
Make it something thoughtful. Yeah.
Thoughtful, like really actually clearly showing that you have an opinion about it, and that you understand their brand, that you align with their brand. Like, this is so beautiful. I could live in that bathroom all day long, right? Yeah. That is feedback that a person who's posted a photo of a bathroom wants to hear,
because
right?
Think about it when you scroll through comments on Instagram. Like, I do this all the time. I see something interesting and I start scrolling through the comments to see what other people are saying about it. And there's all those comments where it's just emojis, or somebody just tags their friend, or it's like nice or cool. And you just scroll through them because they're meaningless, right?
Yes.
But then you see that comment that's like 4 sentences and you're like, oh, what's this? And you read it because that person obviously had something to say, and you want to know what it is. And the person behind that brand's account or behind their own account, those are the comments that are going to stand out to them too, because they're going to be like, oh, this is somebody who's not tagging their friend. Like,
yes. And funny enough, in terms of, so I'm just going to go back to when I said measurement and tracking. When I, as a PR person, am putting a measurement and tracking report together for a brand, so for instance, on a blogger program that we've worked on or an influencer program, I will take screen captures. So here's Melissa's photo of the jam that we were asking her to promote. Doesn't it look pretty on her beautiful sourdough bread, right? And then I'm going to take a screen capture of how many likes that got, because while not of essential value, it's part of the value, so the likes, but then I'm going to screen capture key comments that brand got, right? And if your name pops up there, maybe you're somebody who we're going to work with next time, right? So think about, like, it's planting seeds and it's being an engaged audience member, and it's moving that relationship forward. And in order to move a relationship forward, you can't go on a date and be like, every time somebody says something, they're going to want to hear, like, where did you grow up? Here. Oh, okay. Could you be more elaborative than that, or elaborate on that more? Like, I grew up in, right? That's the one word answers are the emojis, right?
Yeah.
And you can't move a relationship very far based on a whole series of thumbs up and hearts.
Yes. Okay. So we've given you some ideas on how you can start those relationships, and starting the relationship is the hardest part. Once you start to warm up the relationship, it starts to flow much easier and you can grow it more quickly. But the tough part is starting it. But let's move on. We've got about 10 minutes left. So let's move on to the research section. How to do your research before you pitch. Because I think based on the number of pitches I get, this is something people don't know how to do.
Yes.
And it's not hard, okay? It really isn't that hard. So on our website, we have a page called Contribute, and it is easily accessible through our top menu on the site. It's not a top level menu item, but if you hover over our menus, you will find it.
Yep.
And I would say about 98% of the pitches I get, it is very obvious that the person didn't even read it. And I will just be really upfront. The number of pitches I get per week, if you didn't read that page, I'm not interested in what you have to say, because I know you didn't even do the basics, and I'm probably not going to respond to you because, and I, compared to some people, I don't get that many pitches. I get maybe 20 a week. Okay. So not a huge number, but there are people out there who get 20 a day or 30 a day, and they literally don't have time to respond to all those people who haven't done their research.
Yeah.
Having said that, the 2% that do their research, they stand out like a sore thumb.
Yep, exactly.
You know, even if the pitch maybe isn't the best pitch, but it's obvious that they read our Contribute page, I will give them 5 minutes of my time, because it's like, this person at least figured out how to
Google,
how to do something to kind of figure out who we are. So you know what? I'm going to read the pitch. I'm going to respond to them. The response might be that, you know what, this isn't a good fit for us, but we appreciate that you got in touch. And, you know, I might even, if I think they're articulate, because we're looking for writers. So if I think they're articulate in their writing and they've got good grammar and no spelling mistakes and all those things, because you would be amazed how many writing pitches I get that are atrociously written. So I'm just going to say,
the irony.
If you're pitching your writing, make sure that you demonstrate you're a writer. But, you know, if they're articulate and they've got good grammar and spelling, I might even say to them, you know, this isn't what we're looking for, but, you know, in the next 6 months, we're going to be focusing on these topics. Yeah. And if you have some ideas around those and would like to pitch me on that, I'd love to hear back from you.
Yes.
So that's just a simple, basic thing that you can do. You want to find out as much about that person or that brand as you can online. If possible, if you're pitching an individual, see if you can find any interviews with them.
Yep. That's a great one.
Whether it's online, or you can go into your podcast app and just put in that person's name. If they've ever appeared on a podcast, they'll pop up and you can listen to that podcast and episode. That's a great way to
That's
learn
a great tip.
more about them.
And what a great introduction, right? I was listening to this podcast and I loved what you had to say about this, right? You're engaging and really, and it shows that you care and you listen and that your Google's not broken. Like, yes.
If you are pitching a magazine that has print issues, even if they have a website presence, because often the website and the print edition can be quite different, go through old back issues. And this is not hard to do. You go to your library.
Yep.
And most Canadian libraries will carry a very wide range of Canadian magazines. And you can go back and you can look through a year's worth of back issues and see the kind of content they've published in the last year.
Yes.
Right? So you don't want to pitch something that's been written about recently, but at the same time, you get a sense of the kind of content that they're putting out there.
Yeah.
And if your library
and the times of the years that they're putting it out and all of it,
yes,
right?
Because editorial calendars, especially if you're pitching a print magazine, are often set months in advance, even up to a year in advance.
Yes.
And the deadlines to get your content in for those publications, you know, if you want to pitch something for Christmas, you're probably going to have to submit that article by September.
I was going to say, if you're especially like some editorial Christmas, it's already too late. Like they've shot it already.
Yeah. So you really have to be on the ball for those kinds of things.
Yeah.
If your library doesn't carry back issues of the magazine you're looking for, ask the librarian, because there are so many more back issues that are available digitally now. Through free digital apps that you can get with your library card. Honestly, having a library card is essential if you're doing any kind of research. Don't think of the library as that musty, fusty old place. It's not. They have some of the most incredible technological resources available for free. Google editorial calendars online. This is something a lot of people don't realize, but you can go and... because they're not easily findable. If you are on say you're on Canadian Living's website, you're not just going to find a thing that tells you what their editorial calendar is. But if you Google Canadian Living editorial calendar, you might just find it. And if you don't find the current one, because they may not publish the current year, but you will probably find the previous years, and you can go through those and look at them. That's a great way. And that's something you can also do this for media kits.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so much, even a brand's own media kit. So like how to collaborate with me, other bloggers that you want to work with, they have funny enough, like I was just on it this morning for a client, and their blogger collaborate with me. Click. And it has, just like any other brand, it has, pitch me in an email. Here's how I like to be contacted. Here's what I like to talk about. All of those things, they help you. It's sort of like that little About Me page, which, funny enough, if any website that you're on has an About Us, About Me, read it.
Yes.
That's a great place to start too. And
it's also a great place to get a sense of what others are doing. Like if you go on, I think, I haven't done this in a while, but, you can go Google apartment therapy media kit. Like let's say you want to get your handmade pillows featured on apartment therapy. Okay, you're going to have to pitch apartment therapy to look at your pillows, right? You can go on, you can Google their media kit, and it comes up and it tells you exactly
what to do.
It tells you what to do. It tells you it gives you an audience profile. These are our people. They're women. They're between the ages of this and this. They earn this much money. This is what they care about in their homes. This is like, it's a gold mine of information, not just for you to pitch, but also for you as a person who sells to people who like to have nice things in their home.
Totally. And that's the funny thing in terms of even understanding, and this in terms of research, like if your audience is the same audience as apartment therapy and their media kit has all this gold mine of information on how it's presented, maybe you could make your media kit or any pitch that you're doing to another brand or even apartment therapy, make that language
Yeah,
similar, make it resonate. Like,
yes, it's a
you can
great.
use that research to inform how you present the value that you put forward
This is
and
one
the
of the
audience.
biggest. Sorry, I keep interrupting.
Yes,
I'm
no,
so excited.
exactly.
But that is a great, the language. This is something so many of us struggle with in our press releases and in promoting ourselves and in our media kits, is like the language to use. And if you go on and find the media kits for these bigger sites that are in your niche, the language is there. And just reading it, you will like start to realize like, oh, that is a great word to describe my people that might not have come to you before. So gold mine, absolute gold mine. And it just takes a few clicks with your fingers on a keyboard to talk to Google.
Exactly. I'm always amazed at how simple a lot of this information is out there to find. And even agricultural groups, commodities, even a lot of smaller companies, they publish business plans, strategic plans. Those things are published online, and so just Google it. And if you can't find it, it's because it might not be there. But I would say if you Google it using a variety of words and thinking through how might this be out there, you'll probably find it or something similar, right? And so the answer is always no until you ask, including Google, right? Yes. And so if the answer's out there, you should be able to find it.
Yeah.
Do the research. And because you're going to feel so stupid, and you don't want the brand or the person that you're trying to start a relationship with, you don't want it to start out with them thinking you're a bonehead.
No.
Right? and so avoid that. And it's easy to avoid that. Just use your noggin and use what's available out there.
Yeah, definitely. So just to wind up, let's just talk about a few of the things when you structure your pitch, because I think this is something else that people struggle with too. And I think the key when you're writing a pitch or putting together a pitch is, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, is that you want to frame it in a way that it solves a problem for the person you're pitching. Yes. You want it to spark some interest. You want it to show that you have done your homework, you know who you're talking to, and you know what it is, what their pain points are. This is a word you hear all the time, pain points. You're trying to make that person's life easier and solve problems for them. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be different for every person you pitch. And this is why it's so important not to do generic pitches. Yeah. I mean, you can create a pitching template for yourself, but understand that template needs to be heavily customized with every pitch that you send out. So, and this is the thing that I often find most pitches that I receive fall short on, is they're not really solving a problem. They're more asking me to fix a problem on the pitcher's end.
Yes.
And you know what? I got enough problems of my own. I'm sorry. Yes. I don't have time to fix yours.
Yes. And I the number of times I get, and I'm like, that's a you problem, not a me problem.
That, if your pitch comes across as I do this, I have a big audience and I want money from you, that's not the way to pitch something. And you may not say it quite that way, but the way you're formulating that pitch may come across that way, is like, you know what, I have 1 million followers and I can do, you should be working with me because I can reach all these people. And it's like, well, that's great that you have 1 million followers. That's quite an accomplishment, but how exactly is that going to make my life better? Like who are your followers?
Yes, exactly. And if, for instance, like say you do have 1 million followers and you're reaching out to somebody, it's a product you love, right? And they don't have as many followers as you because it's a brand new small business, right? Reaching out to them saying, I want, and here's, my 1 million followers will come to you. Well, thanks for tipping your crown my direction, lovely, but I don't want to hear it, right? Whereas if you came and said, I absolutely love your product, I want to support you in any way I can, I happen to have a following that I think would resonate with whatever it is, here's what I would like to do to help you, and having no expectations. Like if you have 1 million followers and you're going to somebody with 1,000, expecting them to pay you or give you, or to me, that doesn't work. It's like you're flipping the relationship, right? And if you want to start a relationship, it's like the gold digger. The person doesn't walk into the first date and say, "Okay, honey, I'm going to take all your money, and this is the way the relationship's going to work."
No, she puts in some work before.
Exactly.
Exactly. She goes for dinner.
That's exactly it. Like, I expect, when I'm a millionaire, I expect all of the men who are going to court me to come and at least, offer a foot massage.
Yeah.
Exactly. Offer a foot massage. Suggest a spa day.
Yes. They're getting the money in
something.
exchange for making you feel special.
That's exactly it.
Right?
And so think of it, and I always bring social media into real life examples, because as soon as you translate it to the offline, you realize sometimes how ridiculous the behavior is, right?
Yes. Yes. The gold digger one is another good one. I like that.
Right? Like, you need to sit and say, if this is the real world, if this is IRL, what is this? So I'm at a cocktail party and I'm engaging in this conversation. If somebody sat down and they're like, well, I have 15, my clique is over in that corner, and I could drive them towards your meatloaf over there, Sally, at the family buffet, that's not going to go over very well. Whereas if you picked up that meatloaf and carried it over to your clique and said, guys, Sally made this meatloaf. Have you tried it? It's delicious.
Yes.
Wow. You just made way better friends with Sally, and now Sally knows you love her meatloaf. It's a much more authentic, right?
Yeah.
And so you need to really translate it into human terms, and I think it'll go a lot. That research will help you and that's part of the research. How can this be human as opposed to an online interaction, an email interaction? What am I asking for? How can I offer it up to you? And that's part of that research and relationship building.
Yes, and don't take offense so quickly. I'm thinking of a particular instance where somebody pitched us to speak at one of our events, and I responded with the pitch that they sent in wasn't really the right topic, and I just responded, but I was interested in this person because I thought they brought a lot to the table, and I just responded with, I don't think that topic's a good fit. Let me give this some thought, because I just needed some time to think about it, right? And I got back this email. They basically told me how I should be running my business, and that if I didn't think this was a good idea, then I didn't know what I was doing.
Oh, good Lord.
And I was just like, well, I was going to hire you to speak at my event, but now I'm not. So, like we've mentioned before, with when somebody comes to you and the money's not right, don't freak out. Don't get angry. Don't badmouth them. Don't shame them on social media. Yeah. Just reply politely, professionally, and with kindness. And if you can't do that, then just leave it. Just leave it. Walk away from it. It's not worth putting something out there that you're going to regret later.
Absolutely. Because I would much rather say, I sent this person an email, but I never heard back from them. Yeah. Versus I got the nastiest and don't ever work, because my no-no list, just as much as so Melissa comes to me and is looking for contact information, and I'm quite happy to make that connection and make the introduction. I'm also as happy, maybe that's a bad word to use, but I'm also as happy to say, oh, don't work with that person. Yeah. Because, and
those conversations happen all the time off the record. Like,
oh my gosh,
yes.
Do they ever?
So don't think they do. If you talk, you don't know who that person knows. You don't know their network.
No, exactly.
And if you say something or you act in an unprofessional manner to somebody, that will get spread around quietly under the radar. Like, be careful with this person, or we had this experience with this person.
And funny enough, that's all it takes. I, in fact, recall a message I got on Instagram from somebody once that said, I'm interested to see that you're at this particular place with this person. In my experience, they're not terribly trustworthy. I did not even ask for further information from that person who said that to me. I took what they said with 100% accuracy and used it to guide my relationship moving forward. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know, to the person who is being biased against, but that's what was out there. I took it from somebody who had way more credibility than my experience
Than the
could
person
sort of,
you don't know. Yeah.
exactly. And that's the way the cards were dealt. Like,
Yeah.
and who knows if I've been burnt that way. I don't know if there's people who don't work with me because somebody's been saying something. I have no idea. You want to avoid that at all costs. Like, every interaction with every person, every interaction that you have is an opportunity to move any relationship forward, even if it's just being kind to an absolute stranger. The person behind you in line could be the person who's at your meeting.
Yeah, just be careful, and just remember, be as professional and as kind as you can be. And
Yeah.
you might want to scream into a pillow when you get home or
Yeah.
when you finish the call or whatever, and that's fine. We've all
Yeah.
had those days.
Yeah.
But and if you can't be kind or professional or polite in the moment, walk away. Like,
Yeah.
walk away. Put your phone down, put your
Yes.
keyboard away, and go away for a few hours and take some deep breaths and do something else. There's nothing that says we need to respond within 30 seconds to an email.
No, no. And funny enough, and I've been thinking about this recently as we were sort of leading up to this, and we were talking negotiation obviously last time, and today we're talking pitching. And so many of the relationships that I have forged over the years, negotiation and pitching are very easy and very fluid processes because of the relationships that I've built over time that are almost like friendships. And I say almost like friendships because we're very, very friendly. We follow each other on personal, and it's not like you and I like actual friends, but it's like,
I was just gonna say, aren't we friends?
No,
I thought we were
and so
friends.
it's not like actual friends, like people who they come into my house
No,
for dinner.
I know exactly
for instance,
what you mean.
right?
Yes.
Versus you are friendly. It's a very open, transparent, what'd you guys do this weekend type friendly, but still a professional relationship.
Yes.
And I think if you can move to that where it's still professional, but you take it a little bit one step further, that you're very friendly, authenticity and being real and having real conversations with this partner who you're in a business relationship with are a little bit easier because you have a little bit more background knowledge. You can say, well, my life's been a little bit hectic lately, right? They don't know all the details. They don't know the ins and outs, but they follow you on their personal Instagram. You follow them. So you know that maybe their dog died. Or like there's a higher level to that relationship.
Yeah.
And I would say, even if it's with a PR person at a brand, seek that out and aim for that in all your collaborative efforts, because that person who works at the PR agency is going to move to another agency, or they're going to move to a brand, or maybe they're going to launch their own retail store, and that connection is with them, and you don't want to lose that, and it could evolve and grow over time into something more with a different brand, a different partnership, a different way to collaborate. But I would say if you seek out and really try to be as friendly as possible, that's going to take that relationship to a whole new level. And it's also really going to help your research, because friends chat and have conversations, and you can have casual conversations with brand partners around, oh, so it's your budget time of year? Oh, really? You guys do year end in April? Interesting. Note to self, write that down, right? And so those conversations that you can be maybe a little bit more relaxed are still really helpful in moving the needle forward and building the relationship, but also gaining a deeper understanding of what it is that they need and how you can help.
Yeah, lots of good stuff there. It's the relationship with the person is as important as the relationship with the brand.
Absolutely.
And especially in a creative space, because often a lot of the people who work in agencies are very creative people. Marketing, PR, those are very creative fields. And I know so many people who have worked in PR, in marketing for agencies, who have wound up leaving and going off to start their own publication, to become a painter, to do so many different things. And that connection follows that person. And so all of a sudden, that person, you might be able to pitch them, but in a different way. that, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you and I have very different conversations now than when we first met, because we've both kind of gone on creative tangents, if you will,
Yes.
to the side that have helped us forge a connection that way, as opposed to
Yes.
just our PR client kind of blogger brand connection. Now we connect
Totally.
as artists, and we help each other as artists. And like you said, you never know, that PR person might open a really cute artisanal bricks and mortar store, and they really want to carry your beautiful hand tufted pillows,
Yes.
you know.
And it could be, I mean, really that PR person. And I remember when I was the in-house PR person, and funny enough, it was a nasty email that I got back from a blogger who said, "I don't know if you know how blogging works," was the first line of the email back to me. I'll never forget it. And I was like, clearly you haven't literally Googled me, because at the time I had quite a successful lifestyle blog. And in fact, I would argue that it was more successful than the person who was trying to educate me on what a lifestyle blog should look like.
Yeah.
And so you need to, that's part of that research and knowing it, but it's also, that's an opportunity for connection, right? And so maybe they're a PR person who has a little pop-up floral stand at their community market on Saturdays. And so you're going to get that information and make sure to support them at their floral market, right? And so now, I mean, it might seem a little devious, but you're just trying to forge a connection, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you don't know people who are, everybody, we are more than our day jobs.
Yes.
Even entrepreneurs, even artists, we are more than, right? We're the sum of all of these things. We're not just one of these things. And so when you approach a relationship as part of that pitch process, you need to remember, yes, you're pitching a person as part of that company, but you're pitching a whole person who has a life outside of work, and you can relate to that in so many ways. And there's so many touch points for that relationship to flourish.
Yes. That was a great way to bring that round back to pitch. Well, we have gone way over, but I think there's a lot of good stuff here. So I'm totally good with that, because I didn't want to cut us short, because there's a lot to talk about with pitching.
And honestly, you and I could keep talking for another 2 hours.
We could, and we probably will after this. But I wanted to keep the conversation going, because I wanted all of you to realize that there's so many different aspects to pitching. It's not always about pitching for work. It's not always about pitching for sponsored content. There's so many different situations where you might find yourself pitching. And it really comes down to, as we have said multiple times in this episode, relationships and research. Like, those are the two key things you really need to give some time and energy to before you send that first pitch. And when you do send that pitch, you want to make sure that that pitch is about solving a problem or creating an opportunity for the person you're pitching. You don't want it to focus on what you need.
Yes.
And if you can remember those three things, they don't sound very complicated, but if you can do those three things, I guarantee you your pitch is going to stand out. That's how many people pitch poorly.
Yes, exactly. Spell your name properly. Do a little search. Yes.
All the things. Show you've done your research. Show that you have tried to establish a relationship. Show that you are genuinely interested in not just the paycheck that's going to come out of it. And sometimes it doesn't even need to be a paycheck. You know, if you're pitching another artist for a collaboration, maybe it's just a creative satisfaction you want to get out of it. Yeah. And that's okay. But you still need to make it about the other person and the creative satisfaction they might get out of it.
Yes.
So you always want to be thinking about that other person. And if you can remember those three things, like I said, you're going to, at the very least, get noticed and remembered.
Yes. Honestly, these are tips for life. Like, just focus on being a nice person. Do your research. You know, like, really, this is... Smile, be kind, don't react negatively. It's just tips for life, really.
It really is. Yeah. It really is. Well, Heather, I just want to say thank you so much for being with me this month. This has been really great, and you were the perfect person to bring on after Lisa left. Really, you've given my confidence quite a boost, and I really appreciate that. But more than that, I think we had 4 really great conversations that I think are going to be very helpful to the listeners. And if you enjoyed these, please let me know. I'd love to get some feedback from you. And Heather, why don't you tell them where they can find you if you'd like to connect up with Heather? Because she has amazing art. I have one of her paintings in my bedroom. It's fantastic.
Tulips in the Rain. I
yes,
love that.
yes.
People can find me literally everywhere online. I am at Heather Travis on Instagram. I have my website for my art, which is heatherlynntravis.com, and Lynn is Lynne. But you can find that all just going to Heather Travis on Instagram. I still keep my Twitter because it's at Heather Travis, but I'm not on Twitter much anymore. You can find me on Facebook, Heather Travis Art. There's lots of, just Google me. I'm there. It took me a 20-year PR career to bump a porn star named Heather Travis to page 20 of Google.
Wow.
So I feel pretty successful, frankly. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I know.
Well, thank you very much, Heather. And I will be back next week with a brand new guest host for September. I'm super excited to be welcoming Angelina Brogan from Bacon is Magic for
Goodness. Yay!
If you don't know Angelina, she is a culinary travel writer, and we're going to be talking about what she does, but we're also going to be talking about some really, I think, timely topics, including how to pivot when your market disappears. And
she's done such a good job of that right now.
She has. And obviously, travel has been extremely hard hit by the current world situation. And there are a lot of travel writers out there who have really had to figure out how to pivot. And she has done a great job of that. And we're going to be talking about lots of other things, but yeah, I'm super excited to have her join me for September.
So fantastic. She's got one of the most beautiful smiles in the whole wide world.
She's just a really great person, and she's really to the point. Like, she doesn't put up with any garbage. So, you know, she's somebody I can always rely on to call me out if I'm being dumb. Which is, you need friends like that.
Yes, we do. Like that. That's part of the relationship, right? And the authenticity of the relationship is being able to say you're a bonehead.
So she'll be with us next week. And yeah, I hope you all take a few minutes to check Heather, to check Travis out, to check Heather out, and look at her artwork. She does amazing, beautiful large-scale canvases that are just... I don't know, they just bring joy. That's the word that comes to mind for me whenever I look at mine. And check
happy art for happy.
And check out her dollhouse renovations too. Those are really cool.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And we will talk to you all next week. Thank you so much for joining us for the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. If you're looking for links or resources mentioned in this episode, you can find detailed show notes on our website at andshелookedup.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter for more business tips, profiles of inspiring Canadian creative women, and so much more. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the show via your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. We always love to hear from you, so we'd love it if you'd leave us a review through iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Drop us a note via our website at andshелookedup.com or come say hi on Instagram at andshелookedup. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.